What's up, guys? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Ayomide. Just in case this is your first time here, you are most welcome. On this channel I post sewing tutorials. As you can see from this video, I'm going to be sharing how I made a trouser with an elastic waistband. The ankle of this trouser also has a zipper fixed at the ankle because it is a pencil trouser. This trouser also has side pockets. So guys, I'm going to be sharing how you can make your trouser with an elastic waistband. So guys, let us jump straight into this tutorial. To get started, these are the materials I'm going to be working with. I have this Adire fabric and it's a total of 5 yards, though I have used from it to make a dress. I've also got my fabric scissors, I have my tailor's chalk, and I also have my pattern master too, because I'm going to be drafting the pattern directly on the fabric. I've also got my measuring tape. This is also very essential. To move on, I've gone ahead to fold my fabric into two as always, and I've marked out some lines. First of all, I marked out 2 inches, which would serve as the elastic casing allowance, 1.5 inches for the elastic casing, and 1/2 inch to sew down the waistband. This line over here would serve as my waistline, where all of my measurements would be taken from. I've also marked about 0.75 inches away from the fold, and that will serve as a side seam allowance for this trouser. To move on, the very first thing I would mark is the crotch depth, and for this I'm going to be marking the actual crotch depth without deducting any form of waistband allowance, and the crotch depth I'm working with is 11.5 inches. So guys, I'm just going over to mark the crotch depth, and I'm marking 2 inches below the crotch depth that will serve as the tie line. Once I'm through with that, I would go over and mark my waist to knee measurements, and I'm using 23 inches for the waist to knee measurement. After that, I would proceed and mark my waist to ankle measurements, and I would also add additional allowance for hemming. So apologies if you can see clearly, I think my camera didn't cover that part entirely, but I'm just going over to mark my waist to knee measurement and also add an extra allowance for the hem allowance. The next thing I will do is to place a quarter of the hip measurement I'm working with right on the crotch line, and I would place the exact measurement on the waistline also. Initially I deducted 1 inch, but since I'm going to be fixing an elastic, I need enough room around the fabric, around the waist area, for the elastic to fit in. So you would mark the same measurement on the crotch line and the same measurement on the waistline. Also, I'm going over to mark my crotch extension, after which I would go over and draw in my crotch curve. For this trouser, you're not making use of the waist measurements because we are adding an elastic. The next thing I will do is to get the midpoint of the entire measurement I have on the crotch line and mark that midpoint on the crotch line, mark it on the tie line, and also mark it on the knee line and mark it on the ankle line. This would serve as a guide to place all of our measurements. The next thing would be to place the measurement, and what I would do is to divide my tie round measurement by 4 and place a part of that measurement on one side of the midpoint I marked and place the other parts on the other side of the midpoint that I marked. In total, I should have half of my measurement, but you need to place it centrally. That's why we need to get the midpoint. I'll repeat likewise for the knee line. I'm going over to mark 4.5 inches on both sides of the midpoint, and I'm going over to connect first of all with my pattern master, and I'm repeating likewise for the ankle, also placing a quarter of the measurement on either side of the points, the midpoints that I marked, after which I'll connect from the knee line to the ankle line. Once this is done, I'm going over to mark 0.75 inches as side seam allowance. Then I'll go over and cut out my fabric. So this serves as the front pattern. I'm going to be using the front pattern to draft the back pattern. I just need to add little modification to the back pattern, and to do that I'm going to be placing my fabric on fold, which I have done already. and then I place my front pattern on the folded fabric. The very first modification I will do is to raise my back waistline by 1 inch and then extend the crotch area for the back by an additional 1.2 inch. Once that is done, I will draw my waistline, which is going to be slanted for the back. The next thing is to move over to the crotch area. I will come down by half an inch from the crotch of the front, and then I'm going to be ruling a line. On the line that I have ruling, I'm going to be marking an additional 2 inches, 1 inch for extra ease and the other 1 inch for the side seam allowance. Remember, I did not add inseam allowance to the front, so the 1 inch would cover for both the front and the back. I'm going over to mark the other 1 inch inseam allowance on the thigh area and the knee area, which would also extend to the ankle area also. It was only along the crotch area that I marked 2 inches. Once it is all done, I would go ahead and cut out my back pattern. The next thing to draft is the pocket, and to do that you would need to fold your fabric into 2, and that is what I've done. I also marked a line which will serve as a starting line. From that line I marked 8 inches, and from that 8 inches I marked another 8 inches also. So from the starting line I'm going to be drawing like a D shape, which will serve as the shape of my pocket. So just follow the hand of my pocket. I'm starting with a D shape and I'm ending at the initial 8 inches that I have drawn. You would want to make sure that your hand fits in properly into the pocket. So regardless of the size of your hand, make sure that it fits in into the pocket. So you can alter this measurement as you desire, but this should fit in for most people. I'm going over to cut this out and I'll make a duplicate of this pocket. At the end of the day, you should have 4 pieces. What that means is once I'm done, I will be splitting this into 2 and then I would make a duplicate to have another 2 extra pieces. These are all of my pocket pieces, guys, so you should have 4 pieces at the end of the day. Now let us move over to sewing our trouser. The very first thing I will do is to join these trousers together along the crotch line, and to do that I will place right sides against each other. This is the front. First of all, I'll place right sides against each other, move on to my sewing machine and stitch it along the crotch line. I will repeat likewise for the back also. Remember, this trouser does not have any form of dart. There is no dart, okay? So that is what I will go over to do. Guys, I'm done sewing down my crotch area, though I did not do that entirely. I left about 1 inch, which I would finish with the inseam later on. Another thing I did that is very important is to iron down the elastic casing. This would make your life very easy when you want to sew this elastic casing later on. So guys, let us move over to the pocket attachment. To do that, I would grab one piece of my pocket that matches with the side of the trouser I'm working on. You want to make sure that right sides faces each other, and the very next thing I will do is to mark 1 inch below where my elastic casing ends, not where the elastic casing starting from, where the elastic casing ends, and then I would pin down my pocket. So you want to make sure that you secure your pocket properly. Once that is done, I would also do likewise for the other side of my trouser. Mark 1 inch below where your elastic casing ends. You don't want your pocket too high or too low. Pin it down and then I'll go over and sew this down. I'll do likewise for the front and also for the back. I'm through with the process I just explained. The next thing would be to join both the front and the back together. To do that, I would need to place right sides against each other, mark up or match up my elastic casing. Remember, I have ironed them, so I will need to open them up. I'll sew it by my seam allowance of 0.75 inch. Take it around my pocket, take it all around, and then continue from the tie all the way to the knee and all the way down to the ankle. I'll repeat likewise for the other side of my trouser. You want to make sure that your elastic casing is open. Remember, it was ironed, so you need to open it up and sew around your pockets and take it all the way down through the thigh, knee and the ankle, all the way down. For the ankle, I'm going to be leaving some inches. Remember, I'm going to be fixing a zipper, so I'll leave about 5 inches, 6 inches thereabout for my zipper. And for the remaining parts of the crotch I didn't stitch, I would finish it up. This is what my trouser looks like. I have fixed the zipper. I will just try and open it up for us to see, and believe me that I actually fixed the zipper, and here it is. Also, I've also finished off the crotch area. To proceed, I would need to stitch down the elastic casing, and this would be very easy for me to do because I've already gone ahead to iron in my elastic casing. What I will do is that I would go over to my sewing machine and follow the crease line of the fold and stitch this all around, and also leave about 3 inches where I'm going to be passing the elastic through. So that is the trick to this trouser with elastic waistband. I'm done, and here is the allowance I left, and I've also got my elastic here. I've secured one end with a safety pin, which I'm going to be using to pass this elastic through. It was quite a bit of a struggle, but at the end I was able to pull through. I would recommend you increase your elastic casing to about 2 inches instead of using 1.5 inches like I did. So guys, I'm just going over to pass this through, and at the end of the day, this is what I have. You will need to drag your elastic to a measurement that can fit around your waistline properly. After that, I would go over and secure the elastic together. You can use a zigzag stitch, you can use a straight stitch, anyone you want, and I would also close up the opening that I created. At the end of the day, this is the outcome of this trouser. Very simple, quick and easy to make. If you found this tutorial helpful, kindly give it a big thumbs up. If you have been watching my videos and you haven't subscribed, kindly click on the subscribe button below, join the family. And guys, until my next tutorial, goodbye and stay blessed.